Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second week of Singapore Geospatial Week Plus 2020. If you are in the real estate and property tech sector, you're in the right place. We have today Shelli Trung, Managing Partner of Reach Australia, who will share with you about investment opportunities and trends in the property tech sector. Welcome, Shelli.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to start sharing my screen and hopefully technology will work. Here we go. Hi guys, I am Shelli Trung, the Managing Partner for Reach Australia, and just a quick introduction on my background. I am the Managing Partner for Reach Australia. Reach Australia is actually an accelerator program for scale-up companies wanting to enter the real estate sector. It's backed by Second Century Ventures, which is the venture arm for the National Association of Realtors. It is actually the largest trade organisation globally, NAR for short. And our whole goal and purpose is to help technologies companies launch into the real estate vertical. So that's just a little bit of a background on my understanding of technology. I've been investing in technology for a number of years, firstly starting off as an angel investor, but very excited to be able to bring the Second Century Ventures investments into the AIPAC region. Second Century Ventures has actually been making about 8 investments every year over the last 10 years. And last year it launched its own Reach program out here in Asia Pacific. I'm personally based in Melbourne, so it's late afternoon out here, but we make investments globally, and my program focuses on expansion into the real estate sector into AIPAC region, Australia, Southeast Asia and New Zealand. So we are brand new into this region, but not brand new to venture investments in the real estate sector. So today I'm really going to take you through geospatial investments, which to us is actually a subsector of prop tech overall. Why we are excited about this particular sector and why we're actually making, very much here present in Asia Pacific and making investments in this region in this particular space. For us, I thought it'd be really helpful for us to clarify what geospatial is for us in terms of tech investments. And it's really focused on really a lot of data analysis, a lot of mapping, as well as simulation tools and visualization tools. That sort of covers the gamut of geospatial technologies. And, a lot of that is revolved around those applications. So some of these sort of trends we're seeing in terms of investments in this area are around, as I mentioned, mapping tools, but public access to a lot of these data analytics, spatial analysis, a lot of access to databases as well, interpreting those with AI, but also advertising, and locational advertising. We're seeing a huge opportunity for that. Certainly, right now with, emergency notifications, for example, in sort of the current COVID environment, we're seeing a lot of applications around how those cities themselves can alert the local community around things they might need to be aware of, which we're seeing, again, applications in that space we did see beforehand, but also interactivity with a lot of these data analytics with the location itself that you're in. So this is actually a really good example of how we're actually seeing it work in the real environment. This is a case study drawn from CBRE. So CBRE had a mixed-use outdoor shopping centre. They were really experiencing a lot of decline in the occupancy rates, and they sort of used their current mapping tool, geospatial tool, and they looked at the community that was actually going into that space, and they found that based on the mapping out the shopping behaviours, the profile of the actual shoppers themselves, they realised that the space itself was actually attracting a lot more diverse client base, shoppers coming through. And what they ended up doing was actually implement a brand new management system, noticing their demographic, be able to use that data also to on-sell that information to create create a case for new tenants to come into that shopping area. So what eventually ended up happening after 9 months was that the space itself was leased after about 9 months, 90% leased, and then on top of that also increasing the dwell time. So this is again a very good example of the application of GIS and how that can really enhance the return for the real estate developers and operators out there. But, you know, really any city and any space wanting to create a more livable and a more tailored approach to the community. So again, for us, you know, we sort of use smart cities somewhat interchangeably with geospatial. So for us, you know, a lot of the prop tech investments that we like to see very much do cross over to smart cities. Last year, we launched the program and we made our first 6 investments, and half of them were in sort of the smart city space. Transport and mobility, you know, security features as well. We're seeing be hugely popular, but really interactivity with the existing infrastructure, and that includes, you know, a lot of utilities management, buildings being smarter themselves, and I think, you know, one of the key things specifically for the AIPAC region, and I think given the current environment with the sustainability being a key theme, you know, monitoring CO2 levels is a potential opportunity. Obviously, again, with the COVID environment, we're seeing a lot of tools map out, you know, clean air, clean energy use, how to, again, create that optimal environment for the community. So just a quick look, I'm sure most of you guys, you know a lot of these companies that are already doing well in the space, but I thought I'd give a bit of an overview of the bigger technology players. All of these sort of are turning over, you know, $1 billion in revenue. But, you know, looking at the kind of technologies that are making it, you know, you're seeing, again, you know, 3D mapping, a lot of surveying tools, a lot of, you know, again, mapping tools. You've got on the right side very much the market tools around data analysis, you know, making sure we're taking advantage of a lot of the available data. A few more examples, these ones sort of more focused on the design side, more the software side, but again, mapping that physical space. This is actually a more recent example, you know, the sort of up and coming companies that we are certainly keeping our eye on. This is Propeller Aero, an Australian company actually. They recently closed $26 million. They originally started off being a drone company, but have now really expanded that drone technology to really provide more access to mapping, but also, you know, data analytics alongside that. So very exciting to see, certainly one of the bigger up and coming startups out of this AIPAC region. So the market itself, you know, again, we're big believers in prop tech, hence why we're out in this region. But, you know, just a general prediction is that over the next 5 years, we are expecting, you know, from really late last year to 2019 to, you know, over the next 5 years, expecting a double in the amount of geospatial technology being available and the investments being made. It's roughly about a 13% growth over the next 5 years. And again, a couple of the key themes we've already sort of explored, but you know, again, COVID's obviously going to push forward the social distancing. We're already seeing a lot of robotics being deployed in parks, where you're just sort of mapping out, you know, ensuring people are actually, you know, and social distancing, so public announcements, but also collecting a lot of this data, whether or not, you know, certain areas are actually social distancing. But on top of that, also the integration of AR, VR, a lot of these visual tools, AI as well, you know, the integration of IoT technology that will be laid out on top of it, and, you know, a lot of cloud-based technology. You know, again, with 5G coming in, there's just going to be a lot more demand, and it'll be able to handle a lot more IoT devices, and all of this is going to really be needed in the cloud. Particularly, I think for us, a lot of Australians out here specifically, we do have a lot of open space. And I think some of that remote access is going to be quite exciting for this particular area. But more and more so, a lot of the governments are also allowing open data. We've been hearing a lot about open banking, but open data is certainly another area that we see, the public being able to access some of this data and being able to derive some meaning from it, and again, build solutions that are more tailored to the actual community, whether that be an office space, residential environment, or a bit of mixed use. So again, the regional market, just looking a bit more closely into where the growth is going to be. Right now, the North America market is certainly the leaders in terms of the amount of deals they're doing in the geospatial area. But Asia Pacific actually is the fastest growing area. That's actually true for venture capital as well, overall, not just the geospatial area. A couple of the key countries, obviously, is China, India, and Japan being sort of the leaders in terms of, the market's really picking up a lot of this deal flow. But, certainly this region itself is attracting a lot of venture capital. And you'll see that in a little later slide where I've sort of shown where there's more prop tech based investments. But, I think just bringing that all together, why are we seeing so many investments coming to this region? One of the key things is, for those living in this region, is that we are seeing a huge amount of change in Australia, Southeast Asia, the AIPAC region overall. The UN actually predicted over the next 30 years, roughly 1 billion people are going to move from the rural areas to the urban areas in AIPAC. And most of that's going to be in China, India, as well as Japan, Australia, Indonesia, and Thailand. But again, a lot of that population right now in 2014, there was roughly 54% of people living in rural areas. That's going to dramatically change to 85%. So again, a lot more people driving this demand for real estate and geospatial technology development, a lot more population to handle, if you can think of it on a very basic level. Again, more capital flowing into the region, reflective of the amount of, people moving into this region. Another statistic is around the amount of capital coming into the AIPAC area. This is really quite an unprecedented 10-year high in 2019. Obviously, again, some of these numbers will change a little bit. I'm actually quite bullish that I think the AIPAC region will be, one of the continue on this aggressive growth track. But again, over the last 10 years, roughly, there's been a 5x number of deals in terms of, overseas capital coming into AIPAC. A couple of these key cities, again, those of us in Southeast Asia are probably not that surprised with a couple of these key markets. As per I mentioned, a lot of the sort of regions experiencing a lot of population boom, movement as well. The investment side, the development side, they're quite similar in terms of the rankings. But again, these are prospective markets that that are really starting to do very well. And there's where I suppose the opportunity for a lot of prop tech overall to grow. This is more general venture capital. Again, I thought it'd be helpful just to get an overview of venture capital into the AIPAC region, again, in line with a lot of, geospatial technology investment, prop tech investment. The companies on the left side, you can see, again, a huge amount of growth. Apparently, it's roughly about 11x over the last 6 years in terms of venture capital growth itself. And, couple of or several of these companies are certainly the leading, venture firms, all the way from, smaller firms to much larger ones. These are not the actual numbers of the geospatial investments each have made. These are sort of the total investments. But, these are really the guys who are actually making, solid investments into the prop tech space in the geospatial area. And we just wanted to sort of give you an overview of, region-wise, they're quite diverse. Fund sizes, they're quite diverse as well. Stages also quite diverse. Blackbird was actually in the Propeller Aero example I showed before. Again, some of the companies or the real estate groups playing in this space as well. We certainly haven't seen a lot of them start coming to the geospatial space yet, but I think a lot of them have started off with the property management area, and then obviously those in the construction area will start making more solid investments in terms of mapping tools themselves. As I alluded to before, a lot of investment coming into AIPAC, you know, as of roughly, you know, between 2013 and 2017, AIPAC itself actually accounted for 65% of the investment deals in prop tech for you know, on a global level. So really leading the way. And again, I think that's a result of, you know, access to IoT. IoT and sensors are very close to obviously those manufacturing heads. Sensors are getting more reliable as well. And obviously that, you know, will sort of translate to more data access and AI integrations. So I am quite excited about you know, sort of a lot of these tools coming into our region. I think our region will be sort of one of the key ones really growing out of a lot of that access to data and open data. So, you know, as I mentioned before, Reach Australia is actually making investments into this area. We have, you know, in our first year, we didn't really make any geospatial specific investments, but we're certainly on the lookout. And, you know, out of the 6 investments we made, 3 of them were actually in the smart city space. They sort of, I guess they did branch over to geospatial. ECommerce is a parking and mobility application. They actually, I think, presented last week. PAM is wayfinding for large precincts, and they will integrate a lot of traffic data. I believe they're speaking tomorrow, but the other one, actually a Singapore-based company, is Igloo Home. They really provide IoT locks for sort of remote access. A couple of examples of the Reach portfolio. Again, you know, these are a couple of examples from the US portfolio. Like I said, we're sort of quite new to the APAC region for the moment. But, you know, on the left side, you've got really UpData, who have hit $1 billion unicorn status. We invested in that company about 7 years ago. And on the right side, you know, you see a quite different kind of prop tech. They're in the valuation space, in the fintech space. So it does include hard assets, you know, a physical lock like Igloo Home, all the way through to data analytics. So if you are building some sort of geospatial solution, we would love to hear from you. You know, you can feel free to sort of get in touch. One of the best ways is to really keep in touch with us is to sign up to our newsletter. We will actually be opening applications for the 2020 cohort in actually this time next month. So yeah, well worth getting on the mailing list, making sure that you're on our radar, or feel free to reach out to me directly. Really happy to talk to any startups in this new exciting space. That's it for me, short and sweet. Handing back over.
Thanks very much, Shelli, for the interesting insights. I think we have some of our geotech startups here as well, who may be interested to ask some questions, such as PT Jam is here with us. Well, we're opening the Q&A session now. So if you have any questions, please leave your questions in the Q&A box for Shelli. Please feel free to ask her anything you like about while she's here. I think it's good to have her perspective to help along this area in property and real estate. So Shelli, let me just kick off with the first question from my side. In terms of malls and real estate, do you see, most of them are very traditional. Do you see lots of them innovating, or is it just Australia that's innovating?
I think, look, I think the psychology is, and this is what we teach actually our Scale Up program, you know, attendees. A lot of them are actually, you know, their product's working well, but they've never entered the real estate vertical. And as myself and a lot of the managing partners for Second Century Ventures, we're real estate people. What that means is we like hard assets. We like to touch and feel things. You know, we like to really, you know, being real estate people, we like to see what we're investing in. And I think that's really a bit of a disconnect when it comes to working with technology people, because they really build the future, right? They try and paint a picture of what reality will be, you know, when you implement their great new product. And there's just a natural disconnect psychologically, right? And so I think that's why prop tech, you know, is a little bit slow on the uptake because there's just a communication gap. And that's why our Scale Up program sort of helps bridge some of that, you know, some basic psychology around this. But I think the real estate sector, look, you know, I know for Australia and a lot of the region itself, you know, a lot of capital coming through. Everyone's done well in real estate, right? But things are changing, you know, things are changing. COVID certainly changed the real estate market out here. The clearance rates have you know, really gone from what was like 80% down to 50, 60%, you know. So the real estate groups need to innovate. And I say this as someone who was living in the US with the GFC, you know, the global financial crisis. Prop tech and real estate technology was not really a word until about 10 years ago. And so I really want to sort of, you know, really address the real estate groups out there who probably still have to manage the same amount of assets, but now with less revenue, right? Because, you know, you're sort of being hit by the bottom line. Your tenants might not be able to pay their rents on time, but you're still having to manage all these assets. And if anything, you're getting more work. And so they're going to be out there looking for solutions to save money, to save time. And I see this as a great opportunity for anyone, you know, who has a solution for the sector to start putting up their hand, you know, to start, but work with the sector to understand how the solution can help them do that, you know, can help them really manage their parking space when their tenants aren't in there. You know, some tenants are going to start, you know, going back into their workspace, but not 9 to 5. They're going to be staggered, right? And so ECommerce actually, you know, their solution, for example, provides a rostered approach. So that person might not come in every day. They might be coming 2 or 3 days and sharing that space, you know. And so I think there's just a lot of opportunity. I think our companies have actually done really well. I sort of feel bad about saying that, but during COVID, our companies have actually done really well with the real estate groups out here, because they're able to communicate, hey, you've got a building, you've got to get your tenants back in, your office workers back in, this is how we can help. And that's just one example. You know, we're seeing opportunities in retail and hospitality, hotel space. We're keenly looking actually next year for certain sectors, you know, that need a little bit of help. And yeah, very open to really having a chat to anyone who has a solution that can, you know, help these real estate industry get back on its feet.
Great. We have a question from Sonny from DPS Map, Myanmar. Do you see any prospect of building footprints and household data warehousing in a country like Myanmar? Which portals do you recommend for us to work with?
Yeah, so look, I don't know too much about Myanmar overall, to be completely honest. You know, I think there's a lot of building technology wanting to come into Southeast Asia overall. They actually see this area being faster to pick up a lot of this kind of building technology. I've spoken to European companies that actually want to go to Southeast Asia first before they go anywhere else. So I haven't seen anything specific. I think I'd probably have to dig through my archive, to be honest, to give you a solid name. But again, I'm not seeing a lot of these guys get the top end capital at the moment. It's an up and coming sector. This is partly why we haven't, you know, out of the 6 investments, we made 3 in the smart city space, and only 2 of them are really geospatial. And you know, so I don't have any specific comments on that one, but I think it is definitely up and coming area, and Southeast Asia itself is starting to be the ideal location for a lot of this technology to come to first, because they're struggling with some other, you know, acceptances, if you like.
We'd be interested to also hear from your perspective, which markets in Southeast Asia specifically are having a lot of growth in this area.
Yeah, I think Singapore being a smart city and smart nation, I don't want to advise, obviously Singapore Land Authority organised this. I think just, you know, Singapore is just incredibly impressive with the way the city's being, well planned and well planned out. You know, and I think that's down to, you know, the city itself being open, you know, a lot of expat community, a lot of ideas. Singapore's definitely, you know, hugely, you know, supportive of any new technology. But I'm also seeing, you know, on the other end, for example, the Philippines, right? The Philippines, huge opportunity. A lot of greenfield projects, a lot of really young people. They actually have this, out of Southeast Asia, they've actually got the youngest amount of young people. So what that means is that they're on their phones all day. They're on their phones all day. They spend apparently something like 9 hours on average on their phone. Like, I could have the exact number wrong, but the second highest also in terms of, second only to Indonesia in terms of the young population. And they speak English. Right, but the amount of venture capital going into Philippines overall, not just geospatial, but overall, not a lot of capital. Right, second largest population young people, second largest population overall, and then like venture capital is something like fourth or fifth. And so we see a lot of opportunity going into that area. Mainly, again, is just a lot of population that needs to be handled. But not a lot of venture capital. So there's an opportunity there, right? There's always a gap there. But I think Vietnam is, again, sort of from some of that data, the amount of aggressive building that's happening. Vietnam is really, I'm quite excited about that particular region. A lot of progressive real estate groups are wanting to adopt technology in Vietnam, and frankly, because they need it. The population is just booming. So those are kind of a couple of the key regions that I really like. Indonesia as well, sneaking in there. But I think the openness of innovation might be sort of more Philippines, Vietnam. Singapore is certainly, we've already made a couple of investments, Singapore-based companies, so we're big fans of Singapore.
There's a question out there. So how would you see the real estate sector, malls in particular, actually competing with the e-commerce sites?
I think that will come together a little. Like, I talk to a lot of shopping center owners, for example, and during COVID they really couldn't do anything. But in the interim, though, like, you see e-commerce go from like that, those share prices kept going up and up and up, right? E-commerce has certainly really taken a bit of a shaking for the retail sector. I think that, I think the retail sector needs to rethink about how it uses its footprint in a different way, and I think that will also happen with office space. Obviously with the COVID environment, like something like 30% of the population will start working from home. And that's the current predictions. I don't think the office space is going to be dead. I think it'll just mean something different, like retail, and why we go into the office. And same way that the retail space has been experiencing e-commerce challenges for a while. I know that a lot of the retail sectors are begging for technology that allows their tenants to access pick up safely, drop off safely. Like, there's sort of 3 systems working and none of them are talking to each other. And so that vendor is having to drop off something and then pick up something, and then they're out of stock. And so there's huge center-wide solutions for that, and particularly Southeast Asia, because we love to shop out here. So I think that's certainly an opportunity for the retail sector to really innovate at the moment, and really catch up to some of the e-commerce areas. But I think there's just going to be more of a marriage, because even some e-commerce products will start being hit with some of their messaging. Their experience is going to get to a level where you are going to need a physical product. And I'm seeing that with a lot of sustainability products that are very green. And then after a while, they all sound the same. And then things are going to switch back to wanting to touch and feel things. Like, if you're all green and you're all carbon neutral, then the next thing after that is like, well, how good is this fabric? So I think it'll just go in waves and phases.
Yeah, it looks like the malls, the physical spaces, they are innovating smartly by having e-commerce shops as well. So having a mixture of both business models would work for this new normal times. So a question from Bolong C from Solar AI. They are focused on rooftop solar as a use case, but likely exploring opportunities for using the same data for the real estate industry. In this context, can you share more about what an ideal startup for the REACH program looks like for you?
Sure. Well, I've actually personally invested in our solar clean tech companies in my personal angel investment portfolio. Look, I think solar itself is, and any clean tech is quite exciting and interesting. We're actually looking at several for the next year. I'm quite excited about a few of them. I think for us, you know, an ideal startup for us is really, we're a scale-up program, right? So scale-up means typically already doing well. You know, we're not going to be able to help you. We're not technology coders. We're not going to be able to really provide advice. We're a sales and marketing and event-based program. So what we do is we provide access and intelligence to the real estate industry. And what that means is really we like companies that are ready to sell, ready to scale, i.e. they have to have their sales process, you know, kind of figured out. And we just amplify that. You know, our goal is to really 10x your revenue when you come into the program. And frankly, unless we feel like we can really help you do that, we're not going to bring you in. And that's sort of, you know, one of the really key points between another accelerator programs. I've managed several of them. I've mentored on a lot of them. Reach is a little bit different. We concentrate on the real estate industry, understanding the industry, how to sell to that industry. And so for us, we only want companies that have a little bit of their sales process worked out, whether that be within real estate or outside. But, you know, a little bit of traction, a little bit of revenue, and then we look to really amplify a lot of that in the actual program. And it's a sales and marketing program. It's over 9 months. So you actually fly in. Obviously, we're all virtual right now. But the idea is that you fly in and actually do a lot of sales and marketing activity at real estate industry events with us. So again,
or you can hold the next event at GeoWorks.
Sorry, say that again?
And you can hold your own the next event at GeoWorks.
Yeah.
In Singapore.
Yes, yeah, no, we were hoping to physically be at this event, you know, a couple of times. Yeah, you know, in terms of Singapore itself. But again, I covered sort of the region for Australia, Southeast Asia. So I will only accept companies that have technology that is useful to this region's real estate industry. And again, that I feel like can grow in this industry itself. But yeah, when next year, we'll probably do a combination of virtual and real life, depending on how kind COVID is to us.
Great. Well, that comes to the end of this session. Thanks very much, Shelli, again, for joining us and sharing your insights. For the rest of the participants, please do feel free to check out the next webinars that's coming up today and the rest of the week. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.